Hey guys, this is Mr. Levine here in the tech shop at the Innovation Center here at Genesee Valley, and I'm here today to talk to you about one of my favorite tools in the shop. This is the scroll saw. The scroll saw is an exceptionally great tool to use, especially when you're doing detail cuts on things. It's fairly safe to use. I'm very comfortable with 7th graders, 8th graders running the scroll saw, so I'm going to walk you through this process here a little bit, how to set the tool up the right way to get the results that you're looking for on your projects. Okay, so to start out with, you got to know the parts and the pieces of the saw. First off, we have the table. You'll notice that there's no miter gauge, there's no fence, there's nothing on the table. The scroll saw is entirely hand-based. You're going to be driving your piece into the blade using your hands. That being the case, it doesn't do a great job at getting straight cuts, but if you're really careful, you can get good enough straight cuts. So there's the table. Here on the top, we have the power switch and the speed adjustment knob. And when we get into operating this, I'm going to show you what these two parts and pieces do. Obviously the on and off switch here, and then the blade speed adjustment. Here we have a blade tension adjustment. What that does is it stiffens up the blade or it loosens up the blade if I need to replace this blade. I'll show you how to do that here in a second. And there's two armatures. There's an upper armature and a lower armature, and they move back and forth in conjunction with each other with a blade attached in between. So it's almost like a jigsaw, only it's turned kind of almost upside down, but not really. Okay, so let's get into it. First things first is I need to check to make sure that my blade is in good condition when I come up to this tool. If the blade is cracked or broken or gummed up as this one is, there's a little bit of wood glue in here, but I'm looking at it and it looks okay. So I'm going to go ahead and we're just going to keep running with this. But if this was all worn and the teeth were wore down, you might want to come get me to replace that blade, okay? Because it's not going to cut properly. Second thing I need to check is the blade tension. If the blade is not under tension, you can take a pencil and you would be able to just push. Look at how that blade deflects. You're not going to get a very nice cut with a blade that's going to wander like that. It's going to go through your wood material and it's going to be like a middle school student. It's going to take the path of least resistance. We want to make sure that blade is nice and tight so that when I push it with a pencil, it doesn't swing out of the way. The other thing is make sure your work surface is clear and that there aren't just, random things just stuck in. Oh, geez. There aren't just random things stuck in here that are going to get in your way. Make sure you got a lot of room for your hands because you're going to be steering your workpiece. As with all tools that have moving blades, you need to make sure that your blade or your fingers are at least 4 inches away from the blade at all times. However, this is a precision tool. So when I'm cutting, there are going to be times where I need to get close. As long as my fingers are outside of this blade guard, we also call this the presser foot. If it's outside of that presser foot, I'll be fine. Never, ever, ever stick your fingers on the inside of the guard. Okay? Always keep your fingers on the outside. You can get closer to 4 inches on this tool because it is a precision cutting tool. Speaking of the presser foot, you need to make sure that this is adjusted properly. If the presser foot is way up in the air like this, I have all this room to get my hand in underneath. That's a bad sign. One of the things you also one of the other things about the presser foot that's nice is that it also helps hold the material down. I'm going to go ahead and just drive this thing in here. You'll notice how the blade causes the board to jump around. Nothing's helping hold that down. That's the job of the presser foot. So I push the presser foot down so it sits on top of my workpiece, crank that thing down, and then when I run the board underneath, you can kind of see it deflects there a little bit to help hold the board down. Now, if I go to drive this into the blade, I can let go and it's not going to jump around all over the place, okay? So, check that the presser foot is down. Make sure that your blade is in good condition. Also, make sure you're wearing your safety glasses at all times. I'm going to go ahead and pop on my side shields here for just a second. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you how to make this cut. The trick with running a scroll saw is, especially when you're doing a curve cut, you got to move forward and twist at the same time. If I twist my workpiece too tightly, it'll snap the blade. So I've got to let the blade do the work here. Now, I want to keep the inside edge, so that makes this little corner piece out here waste. So my blade is going to be on the waste side of that line. Okay, so we're going to make sure my presser foot is in position. It's a little wobbly, I'm not sure why. I'm going to line it up on the blade. Okay, I'm going to start to move it in, staying on the outside of the curve as much as possible. Now, if at any point I need to put something on the inside to help hold that workpiece down, the good old rubber eraser will do the trick, and that will help me steer. Not using my finger, I can get traction using that rubber eraser. Okay. Once I've made the cut, I'm going to turn it off, wait for it to come to a complete stop, and then I can back away from the tool and I can move. Now I can reach in here now and I can grab it with my fingers. I can take a pencil eraser and I can pull that out, or I could go get a piece of scrap wood. Okay? If you, for whatever reason, if you ever need to remove a piece of scrap while the tool is moving, never reach your fingers in there to remove it. Always use something that's somewhat sacrificial to poke things out of the way. Okay, that was just a curve cut. If you're going to do a curve, or if you're going to do a straight cut, let's see here. I'll use this as a straight edge. If I'm going to do a straight cut, there's nothing to help guide the straight line. I'm just going to have to be very careful and steer on the line as much as I can possibly get it straight. And that's not awful, but you can kind of see it's not perfectly straight. It's probably better to go to a bandsaw or the table saw to get a straighter cut. But maybe that was a situation we needed. There, a couple of scrap pieces off to the side. Now, if I should ever have to change this blade, what I'm going to do is I'm going to unplug the tool first. I'm going to release the tension, which is going to loosen the blade up. There's a little screw on this side. I just unscrew it, the blade pops off. Now, the cool part about this is if I needed to do the inside of a cut, so let's say on this board I have a circle in the middle. If I drilled a hole in my board, I could thread that blade inside and cut the circle out. Okay, but I'd have to go back and make sure that I tensioned it. But in this case, I undo the screw, take the blade off, go underneath, undo the blade at the bottom, and the blade just pops right out. Okay, and there's two pincher screws that kind of help hold these in place. So I'm going to put this back in. You just reverse the process. Blade goes in, tighten the screw down, come up top, put the blade in, tighten the screw down, and then make sure to retension the blade so that it's under tension for the next cut. All right, that's pretty much it. Just to recap real quickly here, let's just make sure. Unplug the saw and disconnect whenever I change the blade. We totally did that. Set the saw for the right speed. The speed adjustment knob, I promised you a minute ago I'd say that. The speed adjustment knob is great because you can speed up or slow down the blade depending on the material you're cutting. Right now we're at full speed, perfect for woodworking cuts. 3/4 inch plywood, 3/4 inch boards, whatever. If you're cutting something softer like cardboard, yeah, it'll cut cardboard, card stock, plexiglass. I would still run it at high speed for plexiglass. But for cardboard, we can gear that down to the point where you can almost see the armature just moving on its own. Okay? So you can adjust your speed based upon the material that you're cutting. With wood, you almost want to run it at full speed all the time. Okay? Keep your fingers away. Again, 4 inches at all times. Precision cut. It's okay to get a little bit closer, but stay outside of that presser foot and the blade guard. Don't force the cut when you're making a turn. When you're coming in here, if you've got a real tight turn, don't force the turn. You're going to snap the blade. If you have to back out of a cut, as I did previously, go in and follow straight back. Follow straight back, trying not to pull the blade. Sometimes it's better to shut the blade off, especially if it's grabbing the material, but you'll feel it as you're moving in and out of your cut. And I think that's pretty much it. Please remember that it is a cutting tool. It does not care whether you're cutting wood, metal, plastic, or flesh. It will cut all of them equally. It's your job to stay safe when you're working in the shop. Make sure you keep all your fingers on your hands where they belong. Okay?